Hello everyone. So, welcome to our weekly class. This is a very unusual class because usually we have a live while the class is happening and people are here. And this week we had some problems with the live and we got so many responses and texts asking us to maybe possibly repeat the class on Facebook. So I felt like it's important and here we go. Hope you enjoy. So this week was a very interesting topic, coming from what we spoke last week about a Jewish soul. So I'll start with a story. Rabbi Zusha Manipoli was a very big Hasidic rabbi who was a very special personality. And one time he was telling that when I go to heavens, I'm never going to be asked, Rabbi Zusha, why weren't you like Avraham Avinu? Why weren't you as righteous as Moses? Why weren't you as righteous as David the king or Solomon or different righteous people? I'm going to be asked only one question, said Zusha. I'm going to be asked why did not fulfill Zusha's potential. Each person is different. Each person has a special identity, special potential, and Hashem is expecting of him to be what he is. And we mentioned that in the last class that it's interesting because we are all coming from the exact same source. As Jewish people, we have inside of us a soul that's literally a part of God. So everything in this world, including our bodies, including even angels, any spiritual things, everything was created by God, right? There's only one thing that was not created, was just moved around, and that's the Jewish soul. The Jewish soul always existed. It was part of God, and he just put it down in this world and put it inside of us. What it means is it's part of our soul, part of our feelings, and we are using it in day-to-day life to serve God and to do the right thing. So that is the Jewish souls we spoke about last week. We want to talk about this week about the fact that there is so many differences between the souls, and each one has his own potential, his own thing that he's supposed to be doing. Why it is like that, and how can we use that? So we started talking about it last week, but even though we are all coming from the exact same soul, it's the same like bringing an example of a DNA. DNA, when a baby is being born, he's all included, all of the babies included in one drop of DNA, which does not mean that you could see hands, legs, eyes, or all of the different parts that are going to be coming from that DNA. You just see one drop of DNA. But eventually, as the body grows, every piece of the body is directly connected to the DNA. In crime scenes, they could find a piece of hair and they could find out through the DNA of that piece of hair who was the person who was in the crime scene before. So every single piece of a human is connected to that DNA. It's not just connected, it is that DNA. It has that DNA inside of it. And that is exactly the same case with Jewish people. As a Jewish person, we have inside of us the soul. The soul of all of us is the same DNA. It's connected to the same source. There's just a process that it went through that brought us the result that we see today. So the same thing will be with the DNA of a baby. So the drop starts as a DNA drop, but it goes through 9 months in the mother's womb, giving the drop the opportunity to create an entire body that's the potential that's inside the drop. So the same thing is with the Jewish people. The soul, before it comes down to our world, it goes through a certain process, which in the process, it gets kind of covered by stuff that it goes through. So as it goes through the different worlds, until it comes to our world, it kind of catches on to different changes until it comes here. So the core of the DNA is the same. Inside the soul is exactly the same by all of us. It's coming from the same source. But as it goes down, it kind of develops to be something that doesn't look the same as what it started as. And that's why we have different kind of Jewish people. We have Jewish people who have a natural connection to God, who naturally feel connected to Hashem. They feel that Him in their life. They do not need to necessarily do something to feel it. It's natural by them. And there's people who it's more, and there's people that it's less. Let's take simple examples. Take Moses, take Avraham Avinu, take David the king. We spoke about him before. Take them as examples for Jewish people that had a direct connection to Hashem. They actually even spoke to Hashem. They heard Hashem. They had a very special and powerful connection. And the same thing in every generation. If you go to higher, more spiritual people, and I'm not talking about just more frum people and more religious people, I'm talking about people who have more of a spiritual connection. Go to big, special rabbis, like in our generation, we had the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Schneerson, that you could see, you could know that this person has some kind of direct connection and feeling to Hashem. It's not just a person like us that believes. He knows. He has something more than we do in his connection towards Hashem. And the same thing like tzaddikim like the Baba Sali, Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu, and there's more and more tzaddikim and big spiritual rabbis that you could bring as examples that were not just Torah scholars. And I don't mean to say just, I'm just saying they were not, their part of being a rabbi wasn't their focus as a rabbi was not focused on the fact of being a Torah scholar, which they were as well, was the fact that they had a very spiritual and strong connection to Hashem. So that strong connection is the neshama. The neshama in those people is more pure than most people, and therefore it's being felt stronger by them. Basically, as the neshama went down to this world, in our case, it went through a process that changed it and changed the way it responds to stuff and the way you feel. But in their case, it didn't change as much, and it's more pure. It stayed closer to what it was. Every morning in the davening we say, Neshama shenatata bi, the neshama that Hashem gave in me. Now, gave in me means just gave in me. There's no process yet being done. And then tehorai, it's pure. Ata berata, but after that, he went through a process. The first process was going to Olam HaBriya, which is the first world after Olam HaTzilut. I'm not going to get into this, it's Kabbalistic levels of spirituality. So it went through a certain process. Ata berata, then it says Ata yetzarta, and then it says Ata nefachta bi. The last level is that he blew it into the body. So the lowest level was the fact that it came down into a physical world, into a body. Now, you may ask, why won't we feel our neshama? Why won't Hashem want us to feel our neshama? And there's a story about a big tzaddik, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berdicho, that once opened his hands and picked up his eyes to Hashem and said, Hashem, if you would have put all of the if you would have put all of the different things that we have in the world, all of the different passions of food, of vacations and everything, you would have put it in books. We wouldn't have felt how exciting it is. We just would have read about it in a book that it's exciting. And you would have put all of the Jewish kind of passions, like feeling Hashem, connecting to Hashem, you would have put that in front of our eyes that we could have felt it, seen it, and every time we daven, we just feel the strong connection to Hashem. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berdicho says, no one would have ever sinned, but you did the opposite. You put all of the Jewish and spiritual passions in the books. We can't actually feel them most of the times. It's in the books. But you put all of the physical passions in front of our eyes. So of course people sin. People make mistakes because that's in front of their eyes and that's in the books. So he was kind of trying to talk for the Jewish people that do mistakes. But the point is that what I'm trying to say is that we don't feel as much as we should be feeling because we have a soul inside of us. So the question is, so if you want to mention just as a side note, why is it like that? We will talk about it in the future. But the idea is that the whole idea of the world is having a challenge. God did not want everything to be automatic. The moment you see God and you feel Him in your life, everything is an automatic. You don't need to challenge yourself to serve Hashem because He is there in front of you. How could you not serve Him? How could you betray Him? The only way to create a challenge is by creating a situation where you do not see or feel Hashem immediately. And only then to test, are you really willing to fight for it? And the only way to fight for it is if you don't see and feel Him in front of your eyes. So that's in just a short notice, as a side notice, why most people do not feel. But there is people who do feel. There is people who feel less. So what do we do as the average person who does not feel as much the connection to Hashem? How could we feel the soul inside of us, feel the connection? So today in the class, I'm not going to read it from inside because anyone that's watching this does not have his own book. In the original class, we always make sure to read the words of the Tanya in Hebrew. So I just wanted to mention this as a side note. So the way to connect to Hashem in our world, where we do not feel the straight connection and we do not actively feel connected and inspired to and close to Hashem, and we do not feel that soul inside of us, is to connect to those people who do. And I use the word connect. I did not use the word learn and study from. Connect. It's a higher level. What I mean by that is, there's big tzaddikim that have Torah classes. You could go and listen to them as a Torah scholar and hear what they have to say, what they have to teach, which is very important. But that's not what we're talking over here. We're talking to even just be close to those people, be around them, talk about them, listen to their look and watch their day-to-day life. And this is very important, because by watching a person that sees and feels Hashem in his life, to watch him and see how he reacts to that feeling that he has inside of him, to that strong soul that he has inside of him, makes you acknowledge the fact that it's there much, much, much more. And that is why being close to a tzaddik, and we're not just talking about learning and studying Torah from a tzaddik, just being close to him, watching him, being around him, it's very powerful and very important for the Jewish soul to be connected and feel. So the way for a Jewish soul to be connected and to feel, it's to be close to a person that is connected and feels, because we don't necessarily have that. And by being close to someone like that, seeing him, his day-to-day life and how he is connected, makes us much more connected. So that is why, if you know, a lot of Hasidim, a lot of students, a lot of frum and religious people go for the holidays to be close to some kind of big rabbi. If you think about it, why do they need to be there? Especially these days that there's YouTube and you can watch everything he teaches online. But even forget about that. You could just go study in the middle of the year. Why do you need to go on a holiday? Because on a holiday, you want to feel spiritual. You want to feel inspired. You want to feel your Jewish soul inside of you. And the way to be doing it, the best way to be doing it, is by going to a tzaddik's, to be around a tzaddik, a person who feels. And that way, that feeling is also going to be passing to the people around him. And I mentioned in the class, we want to do one time to watch together a video of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, because for me it's the best and greatest example of someone that you could see how he doesn't just talk because he thinks or understands, it's because he sees and feels. The way the Rebbe talks about stuff, as it's standing in front of him and he sees him and he sees what he's talking about and he feels what he's talking about and he shares it with us. So it's a very powerful feeling to get from being around a person like that, and to see how devoted he is and his life is towards Hashem, etc. So, if you know the word Rebbe, we use in the United States rabbi, but the original word is Rabbi. Rabbi is if you take every letter and split it into 3 words, comes out to be Rosh Bnei Israel, the head of the Jewish people. So it's the same as a body. A body has different parts in the body. We mentioned that the Jewish people are like a body that comes from the same DNA. And in a body there's a head, and a brain, that's the most important part. And the Rebbe, not just a rabbi, the Rebbe, the tzaddik, is the head of the Jewish people. He has that ultimate connection to Hashem that he could inspire others. So, even though Hashem made it very challenging and hard for us to feel our soul, He gave us the biggest gift, which is to be able to connect to those people who have the feeling all the time, and to use that to connect ourselves. And here comes the last part of the class, which we want to mention an interesting situation. So as we mentioned, there is a very, very high souls that come down to this world, and they actively feel the connection to Hashem. Now, what happens if a soul like that is born to a family that the parents are not from, and do not teach the child about believing in God and the trusting God and everything the soul feels? So what happens then? So it's very interesting. It definitely has an impact, but the soul will still have a very special connection. So a soul that goes down to a family that is not actively connecting the soul to Hashem will be damaged, because will be damaged to a certain extent, because it does not have the tools to be able to actively feel, because it's not. So it's like, it's basically, it wants to connect to Hashem, but it doesn't have the opportunity to connect to Hashem. So, and he doesn't eat kosher food, and he doesn't. By the way, why do we eat kosher food and all of the mitzvahs that we have? It's a part of a very important mission that we have in this world. Because we have the Jewish soul inside of us, we have to keep it pure. So Hashem, God, gave us certain rules that that keep us pure and keep that soul inside of us pure. So a Jewish soul that's born to a family that does not keep those rules, obviously is going to be damaged to a certain extent, and is not going to be as pure as it was when it got into the body, because as life goes on, it's going to be less and less and less pure, because it does stuff that he shouldn't be doing. Not in his fault, of course, but he's still going to have a very special spiritual connection that he's going to feel. And I actually know someone that I know personally that didn't grow up in a frum family and has a very, he feels Hashem in his life, like in a very high level. And trust me, this is not a crazy man that tells me stories. This is a very successful and happy person in his life. But at the same time, he has this strong connection to Hashem, which not every person has, and Hashem blessed him with that. And the fact, if he would have been born if he would have been growing up to keeping Torah and mitzvahs from beginning to end, I'm sure that he would have been a big tzaddik these days, because if you actively fulfill that purpose, that feeling, you will actively make it stronger, and you will feel it more and more as you go. So that is a very interesting concept to understand, that there is souls that, yes, feel, and we could connect to them, and we could kind of get a glimpse from them of what it is to be connected, and to them we will feel something. And if you ask what's the best way to do it these days, and especially if we live here in a place like Virginia Beach, which I'm not sure how many tzaddikim live around, probably the best way will be to read and talk about those tzaddikim. So read stories about them, read about their lives. And there is lots of books that could be recommended for that, if you ask. And it's, again, this is not Torah studying, this is not learning Torah, this is just reading about those people and connecting to their lifestyle that they had. It's a very, very special thing. So I want to finish with a short story. There was a CHABAD rabbi that was asked by a person in his community, what's the job of a rebbe? So he was the rabbi of the community, everybody knew what his job is, but he asked him, you have your own rebbe, and you don't look at him as just your rebbe, you look at him as everyone's rebbe, including me. So he asks him, what do I have to do with that rebbe? I mean, I get it, he impacted you, that you impacted me, so but he doesn't have a direct connection with me. What is the job of that rebbe, if you could define it to me? So he told him, the Jewish people are like a big Sefer Torah. And a Sefer Torah, a Torah scroll, has a lot of letters in it. And every letter has to be completed. And every Jewish soul is a letter. And sometimes Jewish souls get a little bit damaged. And the letter gets a little bit erased or damaged. And the Rebbe, the tzaddik, his job is to come and fill up the ink in that letter. What it means is to fix that soul that's been a little bit damaged. And that's his job. The community member accepted the answer, and the CHABAD rabbi sent a letter to the Rebbe reporting that he said this, that's the way he explained of what's a Rebbe, and he wanted to know that he got it right. And the Rebbe responded fast to him that he got it completely wrong. Because the Jewish souls are not like letters written on a Torah scroll, which could get erased. A Jewish soul is like letters being engraved into a stone. They could never get erased. They could just get covered. So there could be dirt that's covering it. And the Rebbe's job is to uncover that dirt. So if we want to talk about what's the Rebbe's job, What's a Rebbe? A Rebbe sees the potential in each and every soul. He sees the pureness behind it. He sees this as a letter being engraved in a stone that it could never get erased. And he believes in each and every soul. And he will do everything in his power to be able to uncover the dirt that's covering the soul. And it's very interesting because the reason why I connect so much to the Lubavitcher Rebbe and to the ideas he's bringing with him, and to the fact that he's a tzaddik, is because this is exactly what he did his entire life. He inspired people so much to go and help people fulfill their potential and understand how powerful and how much of goodness there is inside of them by sending all of the Chabad Shluchim messengers around the world. So thank you so much for joining us, and look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. As we already mentioned, the class is happening every single week. So Tuesday we're going to have another class, and then Tuesday next week, like the week after, we're going to have another class. This class is happening every week, so make sure to have Tuesday evening available. We announce it every time at 7:30, but the live show on Facebook will always start at 7:45. And one last thing, Shabbat Shalom, wishing you the best.